Prithvi Shantirantariksha Shantir Dyav Shantir Disha Shantiravantara Disha Shantiragni Shantir Vayu Shantiraditya Shantis Chandrama Shantir Nakshatrani Shantirapah Shantiroshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Gau Shantiraja Shantirashva Shantiv Purusha Shantir Brahma Shantir Brahmana Shantiv Shantireva Shanti Shantirme Astu Shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.
We will sing verses from Svatara Upanishad on page 47. Amrita
Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be reading an excerpt from the book titled Practicing Who Am I? Awareness. Awareness is who we are, awareness itself. We are not the ego personality or body who says awareness is mine. That is the incorrect identity. The thought, I possess this awareness, is false and needs to be shifted to I am this awareness. The basic building block for our entire personal belief in an inharmonious human experience is the incorrect assumption that our present identity is one who owns, possesses, contains the awareness of these words. The belief that awareness is the function of our personal mind, that we are the custodians of consciousness, that we are the recipients of life. As long as we believe that we are the container of awareness, we identify ourselves not as awareness itself, but as an empty ego personality, as the one who attempts to have awareness, show us the things we want, the way we want them. As long as we believe this, we are acting a role outside the realm of the real, attempting to make a servant, a slave of God's own consciousness of being. Ponder this basic fact. Once the truth of it is felt, we do not anymore continue to identify ourselves as the old man who must be put off or as the mortal who must die. Rather, we claim awareness itself, life, reality, truth, infinite intelligence itself as the sole and only identity. The awareness that sees these words is the identity. The awareness being I includes the entire universe. We can never actually be the one who claims to possess, contain, imprison, enslave, and make a servant of awareness. When we believe ourselves to be that one, we live as a house divided, in bondage to our own false sense of self. You are not the one who is aware. You are awareness. So the question arises that, what is power? The answer is the contrary to popular belief. Power is not the ability to do something. It is the ability of the identity or awareness to continue being what it is. Undisturbable tranquility, the center of being, the awareness of deity. Identity or awareness is the immutable center of being tranquility which cannot be disturbed. This immutability is the power of being, not, as humanity judges, the ability to work great works. The capacity to continue being the identity one is effortless and inescapable. This identity being us is ever new and renewing, never aging, running down, wearing out, or collapsing. The only power ever necessary is a power completely unavoidable, the power one already is, the ability to be and remain the self-awareness of deity. We stop thinking of it as the capacity to work, accomplish, and experience. The more conscious one becomes of the attributes of identity, the closer one approaches to power. The actual simple exercise of omnipotence is steadfastly living as the simple, unjudging awareness of the universe. Awareness is the balance that pervades the universe. Is not conscious awareness directly between seer and seen, as seeing in action? Who will deny it? Generally, the world is unaware of the balance that pervades everything, permeating the events of nature and the activities of men. Balance is more than a simple presence. However, it is the basis for the way images appear, animate and inanimate, tangible and intangible, etc. More than that, it is the foundation for all that is seen as movement and action. Words are insufficient to picture this balance adequately. The balance, the whole center, is not isness itself, but the totality of that which isness knows itself to be. It is the self, the identity I. The balance appears to our opinion-making, thing-evaluating self-misidentification as a constant contention between all the dualities judgments create: open-closed, male-female, hot-cold, good-evil, life-death, first-last, old-young, and so on to infinity. Now listen, to experience an end to all contention with duality, not in lip service, nor in absolute theory, but in fact, experience tranquility, The end of experienced emotional duality hinges on our mindfulness of tranquility as a balanced center between feeling good and feeling bad. If we are to enjoy the vistas of peace lived, if we are to enjoy the sabbatical rest that comes from no longer swinging back and forth, we must stop the judgmental pendulum. The kingdom of identity is a movement and a rest. As we stick to the true identity, to this simple, tender awareness, refusing to play the role of judge to the best of our ability, we discover a rapid lessening of the swing between elation and depression, between ecstasy and dark night. Soon, we'll be able to eventually reside consciously at the solid center, as tranquility, which in reality has been and is our true identity. For a time, out of habit, if nothing else, we are prone to continue an educated concern for the objects of perception, to continue a judgment of them and an attachment of value to them, thus forgetting that which is being complete and perfect perception itself, spirit. To remind ourselves of that ends the misjudging mind and its pictures of poverty. It calls for the conscious return to identity and for withdrawal from the practice of making judgments and attaching values. By judgment is meant the attachment of values to the things we see, most especially the value called good or evil. It is meant that we stop giving authority to that which has no authority except to be what it is, an image being an image, a thought being a thought, or a feeling being a feeling. When we stop delegating the authority that belongs to God being this awareness I am, we are enabled to stop reacting to appearances as if they had such value, power, and authority. We find this deific self-awareness I am actually does have dominion over every creeping thing, as we have been told from the beginning. Perhaps I should point out again that by ending our evaluating judgment of awareness and all it contains does not mean the end of distinction. The tree is a tree, and the mountain is a mountain. Each is distinctly what it is. Our ability to distinguish increases enormously as we stop the attachment of values to that which is valueless. This expanding aliveness is one of the many wonders of this work. There is nothing unknown that will not be known. Awareness is where the unknown becomes known. So when we end the silly practice of making this awareness I am tributary to the images it includes, we begin to see what misevaluation and misidentification have hidden. It is as simple as that. To those sincerely interested in ascertaining reality, there is an area of breakthrough available. Where is it? We are in the fertile center of that area. The instant we stop playing the judge, the great evaluator, the presence is felt as an enlightenment, as a breaking through, as a lifting, as a rest, as a rolling up of the scroll, as the lessening of a load, as peace and happiness. Perhaps the last thing to be understood about telling others of reality is this: the way to tell is to be. When we be, we tell it with the most wondrous effectiveness. As awareness I do not put those images there, and I am not responsible for them except to continue the honest, unjudging consciousness of them, perceiving them as the myriad magnificent qualities isness knows isness to be, and knowing it as isness who is being this awareness I am. Awareness doesn't have faith. It is faith. God's faith in the very action of happening. Awareness doesn't have trust. It is trust in the act of trusting. Awareness doesn't have understanding. God has self-knowledge, and this awareness is that self-knowledge happening. As awareness, I look, I behold, I see, I rejoice, I laugh, and I joy. As awareness, I do not have to understand. I do not have to trust or to trust something else. God does that, and I am that doing happening effortlessly, here and now. Those who are ready for this move to childlikeness and simplicity are indeed ready. Thank you.
I'm going to share excerpts from. Thank you. This is the letters from of Swami Tyagananda, direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So these letters are to brother disciples and his friends, I guess. So the first letter is, he wrote this on November 25th, 1915, Almora. Dear Bihari Babu, I was pleased to receive your letter of November 18, 1915. It is good to be born in a Brahmin family, provided one obtains steadfast devotion to God. However, a Brahmin without devotion is worse than a pariah. If there is devotion for God, then even Sudras attain the supreme goal. This statement of Gita, chapter 9, verse 32, is confirmed by the scriptures. We have also learned the same truth from the Master. I am not willing to admit that Brahman is a sealed book to you just because you were not born in a Brahmin family. Rather, it seems to me that those who hold the view that none except Brahmins will realize God do not know the spirit of the scriptures. I am extremely glad to know that you do not care for anything except holy company. This is good. Even it may be construed as pride, because Shankara glorified holy company as a ferry boat that helps one to cross the ocean of Maya. Mohamukunda, chapter 5. We have learned from the scriptures that if you put all spiritual practices on one side of a scale and the result of a moment's holy company on the other, the latter will be heavier. Why should you think that the capacity of your brain to assimilate has declined? Rather, your capacity to discriminate between good and bad has increased. And so you are not inclined to accept what is bad. Your humility is undoubtedly praiseworthy, but I don't think you are right in saying that you are still the same as you were 20 years ago. Of course, if you say this with reference to the Atma, then it is true, for the Atman is changeless. Although a holy man has to deal with the spiritual and material things do not add to his stature. Only your sattvic nature befits a holy man. Your feeling of impatience will not last long. It will go away as soon as you become a little more indrawn. Spiritual practices should be increased slowly and gradually. You are on the right path. The Master used to say, thinking of the Lord while living in the world is like fighting from within the fort. There are many advantages to it. In the case of others, such as monks, it is a fight in the open, and that is not for all. The main thing is to keep the mind on God by whatever means. Only then will the purpose of life be fulfilled. One has to give attention to food and clothing. That is necessary, as long as the body lasts, Narabhakti Sutra. But Ram Prasad says, while eating, think you are offering libations to the Divine Mother. One should listen to these saints. Only then will one be able to develop devotion to God. Ram Prasad sang this song. So there's a song here. O mind, I tell you this, worship Kali in any fashion you please, repeating day and night the mantram given you by your guru. Consider lying down as prostration and sleeping as meditation on the mother. While eating, think that you are offering libations to her. Whatever you hear with your ears, all that is the mantram of the mother. Kali embodies the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, assuming names letter by letter. Ram Prasad is happy to proclaim that the mother pervades all beings. As you go about the city, think that you are going around the mother. Is there any realization higher than this? This is called the experience of Brahman everywhere, in every action, in all beings, and in all respects. This experience of cosmic consciousness has been mentioned not only in the Yajnavalkya Smriti, but also in other scriptures such as Dharmasastra, Yoga Sutras, Purana, and Tantra. The Mahanirvan Tantra is an authoritative text for householders to attain the knowledge of Brahman. Raja Ram Mohan Roy founded the Adi Brahmo Samaj based on this book. God alone is the Guru, and he provides according to the needs of the devotees. You tell him what is in your mind, and he will do what is necessary. You are right when you say that without the grace of the Lord, spiritual practices of no avail. But if somebody sincerely practices sadhana, God's grace dawns on him. The Lord is omniscient. If one prays to God wholeheartedly, he fulfills every desire. As longing for him increases, his grace is felt more and more. May you have intense yearning for God. That is my prayer to him. With love, the best wishes, Tyagananda. And there is another letter. Dear L, it's again in 1915 from Laura. I was glad to receive your letter of December 3rd. It is very difficult all at once to feel the presence of God in every being. It is not entirely possible unless one attains illumination. But God is all-pervading and dwells in all beings. Knowing this, if a person serves human beings, he is serving God also. If one can serve in the spirit wholeheartedly and without desiring the fruits of one's action, through the grace of the Lord, one will realize in time that service to man is worship of God. For the Lord is present in every being. Truly, he alone exists. Purity and impurity are nothing but differences in one's attitude. Attachment to sense objects is impurity, and attachment to God is purity. That which is real in human beings is God. Without God, man is nothing but a cage of flesh and bones. The consciousness in man is a part of God, and that is pure. Everything else is impure. The God tendencies in man lead him towards God, and the bad tendencies keep him away from God. One can understand this gradually, but in the beginning of sadhana, one should hear about it. It is only through the grace of God that one is drawn to having a good character. God is the source of all goodness. Therefore, realizing God, one gets rid of restlessness and becomes blessed by attaining supreme peace. What is needed is that you'll steadfastly keep waiting at his door, and the Lord will reveal everything to you. Always maintain good tendencies in your heart. God is goodness itself. If you can keep him in your heart, you will lack nothing whatsoever. God is our mother and father, friend and companion, wealth and wisdom. He is our in all in all. Thus, if you can make him your own, your life will be blissful. You have asked too many questions. It is not possible to answer all of them. And even if I did answer them, I don't think you would be able to understand. But this is certain. The more you move towards him, the more your understanding will be clarified, and thus all of your problems will be solved. Without having a spiritual mood within, one cannot understand spiritual ideas. Always try to see the Lord within your heart. When you need to know anything, ask him with utmost sincerity. From within, he will make you know everything. He always does that for everybody. If God does not reveal himself, with all one's efforts, one can neither understand nor help another to understand. What seems to you now is a great mystery will become clear very easily through his grace, and you will see the truth. It takes time. Don't be impatient. Call on God with all your heart and soul, and try to make him your own. Pray to the Lord from the depth of your being. He is omniscient, knowing our intentions. He arranges everything accordingly. There is no doubt about it. With love and best wishes, Tyagananda.
We will sing Jaya Vireshwara on page 45 of your books with the translation at the back.
Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayedhi Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. I'm going to read to you today very briefly from this book titled Abandoning an Adopted Farm by Kate Sanborn. Some of you may be familiar with this name. Over the years, we have several times described about Swami Vivekananda's first visit to the West, how he came, and all the events that occurred, how he landed in Vancouver and then took the train to Chicago. And on the train, he met with this New England lady named Kate Sanborn. And then from Chicago, he came to Boston and stayed. And so many of you are familiar with the story. So Kate Sanborn was also a writer. So she wrote this book titled Abandoning an Adopted Farm. And there's a sequel to it, Adopting an Abandoned Farm. So I think that probably was the first one. So this book was published in 1906 in New York by D. Appleton and Company. She's quite funny. Probably the book is not in print anymore, so you might find it in some old libraries. You might get copies of it. So in this book, she does refer to her meeting with Swami Vivekananda, and Swamiji stayed at her home, so he was her guest. And so I'll read to you just a small section so this is a first-hand account of the Swamiji's host, where he stayed in 1893. And then she somewhere, it begins on page 7 of the book. When I had the honor of entertaining a Hindu monk last summer, a man of wondrous learning, eloquence, and philanthropy, the excitement rose to fever height. I had met him in the observation car of the Canadian Pacific, where even the gigantically grand scenery of mountains, canyons, glaciers, and the Great Divide could not take my eyes entirely from the cosmopolitan travelers, all en route to Chicago. So many of these were going for the Parliament of Religions. Parsis from India, Canton merchants, millionaires, New Zealanders, pretty women from the Philippine Isles, married to Portuguese and Spanish traders, Japanese dignitaries with their cultivated wives and collegiate sons, high-bred and well-informed, etc. I can see the language also, how it was 100 years ago. I talked with all. They cordially invited me to visit them at their respective homes, and I, nothing abashed, spoke in rather glowing terms of my rural residence and gave each my card with Metcalfe, Massachusetts as the permanent address. I alluded to the distinguished men and women in Boston and vicinity who were frequently my guests and assured all a hearty welcome at my farm. But most of all was I impressed by the monk, a magnificent specimen of manhood, 6 feet 2. Actually, Swamiji was about 5'8". But sometimes you'll see, you be in the presence of someone, they look taller than they actually are. So she figured he was 6 feet 2. As handsome as Salvini at his best, with a lordly, imposing stride, as if he ruled the universe, and soft, dark eyes that could flash fire if roused, or dance with merriment if the conversation amused him. He wore a bright yellow turban, many yards in length, a red ochre robe, the badge of his calling. This was tied with a pink sash, broad and heavily befringed. Snuff brown trousers and russet shoes completed the outfit. He spoke better English than I did, was conversant with ancient and modern literature, would quote easily and naturally from Shakespeare or Longfellow or Tennyson, Darwin, Muller, Tyndall, could repeat pages of our Bible, was familiar with and tolerant of all creeds. He was an education, an illumination, a revelation. I told him as we separated, I should be most pleased to present him to some men and women of learning and general culture if by any chance he should come to Boston. We parted. I fatigued myself into positive illness by my pedestrian and cerebral exertions at the exposition and all that motley assemblage, with minds as diverse as their raiment, was only a highly colored fantasy of the past. Just risen from a sick bed, I received a telegram of 45 words announcing that my reverend friend of the observation car was at the Quincy House, Boston, and awaiting my orders. Then I remembered vividly. I had urged him to accept my hospitalities if he felt lonely or needed help. I had promised those introductions to Harvard professors, Concord philosophers, New York capitalists, women of fame, position, and means, and brilliant gifts in writing and conversation. It was mid-August. Not a soul was in town. And how could I entertain this wonderfully apparelled Pandit? I was aghast, but telegraphed bravely. Yours received. Come today. 4 o'clock train, Boston and Albany. As the cars stopped, even the piercing whistle had a derisive sound, and I trembled at the effect he might produce on the crowd gathered for the mail. But he was received in breathless silence. He was such a surprise. If he had looked regal but bizarre among a group collected from all nations, he was simply amazing on the platform at Gooseville. Some people identify this Gooseville with what we today know as Foxborough. I'm not sure about this, yeah. His luggage was so considerable in amount that the train was 10 minutes late at the next stopping place. He had brought almost a whole library with him of books recondite and rare, heavy in either sense. The yellow headgear looked a brighter yellow than before. The mulberry pink sash failed to harmonize at all with the red robe. He seemed slightly surprised by the simplicity and quiet of the place, but was too courteous to speak of it. He never minded the stares and grins that were most evident to me. Shall I give up the costume of my forefathers? He sensibly inquired. Will you adopt the trailing robes of our women when you visit India? It is only our bad manners and ignorance that make us think everything is queer, ludicrous, or wrong that differs from our own way. Rose Terry Cook told me that in a little town where she once lived, they spoke of every stranger as a foreigner, and there were dislike and a lurking contempt in the way the word was used. But the climax was reached the next morning when he was sitting on the porch wrapped in deepest thought, or rather endeavoring to exclude all thoughts from his active mind and thus give room for divine light and communications to flow in. As he sat there, immovable, with eyes vacant and fixed, striving for an approximate condition of nirvana, Bill Hanson came round the back way, staring, half awestruck, half amused, and said to my man, "Gosh all hemlock, what has she got now, and how did she make it?" He inclined to the theory that it was either a lifelike wax figure or a huge rag doll which I had built and painted and stationed there for effect and the wonderment of the public. How could I imagine that? So please, in future, believe implicitly my truthful tales. It was trying and vastly embarrassing to have my Oriental visitor inquire in rotund but melancholy and doubtful tones, "Where are these influential gentlemen, these women you promised me? I must see them and begin my struggle for my poor people." The mailbag was stuffed next morning with frantic appeals for help, and I am proud to say that my friends rallied nobly from their vacation haunts by seashore, lake, and mountain, and my careless promise was, through them, most gloriously fulfilled. Oh dear, I cannot help laughing here all by myself at the remembrance of one evening when fully a dozen ladies were gathered around my honored guest, looking at him admiringly and at each other with approving words as he explained at length his creed and philosophy and plans for bringing the wretched masses in India out of their poverty and suffering by introducing a little of our practical way of earning money. Then he told us that the soul is a circle whose circumference is nowhere and whose center can be everywhere, and that the universe is a power composed of the great infinite, and each separate world a distinct meter or rhythm. My overstrained mind began to wobble, and I found I was sitting on the edge of my chair with eyes aching from a prolonged stare of wonder, my mouth positively ajar like a rustic at a muster. And as he talked on and on in glowing rhapsody, I suddenly saw myself as an extremely mature American Desdemona, listening intently to the marvelous eloquence of my Bengali Othello. I left the circle to indulge in immoderate, half hysteric laughter all alone. I had achieved success, but I too had to struggle. He called me mother at parting, an especial tribute to any woman in India, as he explained. I appreciated the compliment. I was proud of such a son, yet, and it was somehow a little trifle depressing. Of course, I did not expect my fascinating guest to prostrate himself before me and, laying flowers at my feet, chant a song of worshipful admiration, as he had said was the proper thing to do on meeting a young and beautiful woman. Oh no, I didn't sigh for that lovely attention. But to change instantly from a Desdemona, however old, to a sort of spinsterial Cornelia, the adopted mother of a Hindu Gracchus? Gracchus? Gracchus. Gracchus. Gracchus? What is that? Some character from somewhere. It was either said or supremely funny with a leaning toward pathos. Later, a note of inquiry as to my whereabouts was received from the senior Parsi, a most interesting personage, but I let it remain unanswered. Very rude, but I knew I could not do this sort of thing twice with the same eclat. I think that's pretty much which ends. Anyway, so you get some glimpse of how people 100 years ago who saw him, and then this is how they recollected. So I thought I would share this with you today. Om Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. Next Sunday, our subject for satsang will be Who is Shiva? As we get ready to celebrate Shivaratri, will be on not this Friday, next Friday, Friday after that. That will be on the 21st. So next Sunday, our subject will be dealing with Shiva. On Wednesday, we will resume our study group meetings, studying Swami Vivekananda's talks at the Parliament of Religions. And Tuesday and Saturday, meditation will also continue as usual. So now we'll have prayer, then we'll do Sarvamangala, and then we'll go and have our this thing. So please say prayer on the page 3 of your books, probably. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto you.